The same fucking idiot generals then went into Ukraine after they dumped out of Afghanistan and tried to turn the Ukrainian military into this European NATO military, which it is not. And they tried to fight like it was NATO, which it wasn't. And they're running out of men. If it was NATO fighting Russia, we could do counteroffensives because we'd have a lot more men. The Ukrainians basically burned through all their men because of this stupid fucking strategy. And now we're just in this stalemate thing. So I see the general, like, decapitate this whole generals, all of these people. Even the civilian bureaucrats, too.
I'm not arguing with you there.
Hi, everybody. This is John, back with Real Veteran News. I'm here today with two good friends, Doug LeSpear, and again, from last week, Mason Ballou, who's done many videos with me so far. Actually, you're the first person on any of them. So welcome back, Mason and Doug. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hey, I'm Doug Spear, Army veteran of 20 years. I retired in 2004. So I started in 86 pre-Panama. That's pretty much it. I did contracting for another 10 years afterwards.
You're a Panama Ranger, right?
I am.
That was a pretty decisive victory.
Well, they were a little bit overmatched, so I wouldn't hold it against them.
All right, Mason, would you like to introduce yourself again?
So I'm Mason, the Air Force vet that joins in. So I like to bring an air power focus to the conversations because, the Air Force has been neglected and underutilized for about the last 20 to 25 years. Storm and Norman proved that we can win wars, but the enemy's taking us out of the fight lately. And it seems like the next fight might not be the case. But so that's me. I'm just kind of the Air Force nerd. I'm also about to launch a new product. Hopefully today I can maybe submit a code to the App Store. And Doug, this is our first time chatting together, and you look like the Fonz. That's all I got.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
All right. Well, let's start talking about the news. We got 4 topics. The 4 topics are the Biden campaign, the Supreme Court, Russia escalation, and Chinese AI. The Hollywood Biden watch party was Rob Reiner and Jane Fonda, and they say Rob Reiner was screaming and Jane Fonda was crying. So,
that means the world is doing well. If Jane Fonda cries, we should be happy.
All right. So, obviously, everybody is upset about it.
Not everybody.
The story last week was kind of about the debate itself. Now it's kind of the aftermath of the debate, like what comes next. This campaign keep going. The donors are going crazy. They want something else. And so they're in this situation with Kamala Harris where it's like she would be next to replace him, but then she's even more unpopular than he is. So what do you guys think about replacing Joe, the campaign, and Kamala Harris?
I don't think they can unless he agrees to go or they institute Article 25 somehow. I mean, unless he agrees to bow out. He's got all the delegates. I mean, they can beg him to do it, but it's getting a little bit late in the day.
He can decline the delegates and basically just open it up.
Right, he can, but if he declines for competency issues, then how does he remain president for 7 months?
Mason, what do you think?
I mean, on the note of competency, I don't think he's going to drop out. One, I just think he's in power and all they care about is having the control because then their agents, their analysts, their lobbyists are the ones that are in power. So I think he's their best chance for 2024. I saw something, I don't know can't remember where I saw this, I think it was on Twitter, and it just said that one of the risks is do people get refunds for their campaign donations? If they donated to Biden-Harris and there's no longer a Biden-Harris, and I'm guessing that there's fine print that says in the event of this, the money just stays. I thought that was a pretty interesting point.
They're asking for refunds.
They should. If he pulls out of the race, they should be entitled to get their money back because they bought something that was sold to them in fraud. But maybe that would be considered official capacity of his operation. So I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves. The other thing I would say is I just don't think it's going to happen because Kamala Harris is a DEI hire. She's not there for capability or competence in any way. So I think that she would be a guaranteed loss if they promoted her to the nominee. However, the benefit for that is Trump could be ending 3 fucking political careers in his short tenure as a politician. I mean, he's already ended Hillary, right? She's done. So if Biden drops out and he's done, then Kamala gets crushed in 2024. She's done. So he could end 3 political careers in his very short time in politics. And that would be pretty awesome. From a Democrat perspective, I think it's smart. Like, I think they'll stick with Biden, but if they ditch him and let Kamala Harris run, they can be done with her and move on to somebody popular in 2028. If they don't put Kamala Harris in 2024, they're stuck with her in 2028.
I guess the other way to look at it too is, so say they stay the course and they get their ass handed to them, right? They've got an easy out excuse, right? Like, we just couldn't make this happen. The dude was totally incompetent. Kamala's just a crap show. So we're just going to dump them all and start anew with somebody young and fresh and whatever, and sort of revamp the party and build their base back that way.
People have been insulting the Republicans, like, what is a Republican right now? But it's like, what's a Democrat after Biden? Like Gavin Newsom?
I know. Well, I'm in California, so for God's sakes, no.
What do you think about the racist scenario where Kamala Harris is passed up and replaced by a white man?
They'll lose.
Yeah, they'll lose because
they'll lose a ton of their, absolutely.
That's why you always put her in 2024 and let her take that beating. And then you're like, hey, we let you try. It's not our fault. We're not the ones who passed you over. But this is what happens when you hire for diversity as opposed to competence. And that's why they're stuck with a VP that is useless.
Well, she can't win a Democrat primary. So in 2028, she's not. Even if she's the vice president, she's not going to be able to win that primary.
It's true. It's a good point.
She's not likable.
No, even by her staff.
Oh, yeah, there's been all kinds of rumors and stuff. Anyways, so Biden's decline. They're saying that people close to Biden are saying that they've noticed 15 to 20 times in the last year where he's lost his train of thought and can't pick it up again. They say two sets of one person, right? Where it's like he has good days, he has bad days, and I get that. So 10 to 15 times over 12 months, that's about like 1.5 times a month. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, this happened quite a bit. What do you think about because the Democrats are saying, oh, he just had a bad night. Only 20 minutes of the debate was bad. The rest of the debate was okay. Like, he came back in the end of the debate. He just had bad 20 minutes. But that doesn't jive with everything that we've seen and all the evidence and is just his age, right?
First of all, I think that number is totally understated. Second of all, having lived with two sets of parents, both mine and my in-laws, who've gone through either Alzheimer's or dementia, I mean, you don't recover from it. You don't get more lucid as time goes on. And I'm not saying he has it, because you will never know what he's diagnosed with until post-presidency, even if that. But I think it's like a massive cover-up because everyone still has Trump derangement syndrome.
Mason, what do you think about 15 to 20 times over the last year?
I would agree that that's understated, but you could say the same thing about me. But I mean, I'm a bit of a stoner. So like, hey, I lose my train of thought. And especially if you're giving a 5 to 10 minute speech, like, oh no.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
All right. But also, I would say more important than that is it's not a big deal to me, because it's more about setting the tone of leadership in advance. And like, once you've set the tone of what you want to have accomplished, like good leaders, like you don't really need to be continually giving speeches and shit. So to me, it's not that big of an issue, because I mean, you know what his policies are and you know what he wants to enact. And it doesn't matter if he can step into a cage and debate, because you don't need to do that as president. You just need to be able to set the tone and convey leadership. So to me, it's not a hindrance, but at the same time, I disagree with his policies. That's why I wouldn't vote for him. It has nothing to do with his cognitive decline. But the final thought I've been wondering, I saw some articles about like the long-term impacts of the COVID vaccine, and I've been vaccinated. So like, I never got boosted, but I wonder, did he take the vaccine and that's why he's having such a rapid cognitive decline and it's related to that? Or did he take a placebo? I'd be curious to know if he actually took the vaccine or if he took a placebo. And maybe that could be the reason for this cognitive decline being so rapid.
So I think to Mason's point, I mean, first of all, his cabinet picks are total crap, right? Like it's not just him. So I'll throw Reagan out there, right? Reagan was pretty old. He started to decline a little bit towards the end of his presidency, but he picked really good people to surround him, right? That could essentially run the entire government for him. And he needed to just go out there and give confidence and leadership, as Mason said. That is not the case here. Like, we've got complete retards in our government right now that are just effing up 10 ways to Sunday. The main question I have is, who is actually running our government? Like, I don't know. Does anyone have confidence that they know who's running the government? It ain't him.
It's women. He's basically the first female president, and it's being run by a group of women.
I guess. It's being run by shadow people behind the scenes. So whether that's a cabal or it's not one person.
Did you see that they're calling Jill Biden First Lady Macbeth?
No, I did not. But I like that, first female
president. I think that applies quite aptly.
All right, so Hunter Biden is sitting in on White House meetings because
he's dealing with foreign policy and foreign governments.
I think he doesn't want to let these people to be alone with his father in these meetings because they might try to do, like convince him to drop out. Yeah, Jill and Hunter want him to stay in. The whole family wants him to stay in because he's their only, because of Bo's dead and then Hunter's disgraced. Joe's the only path to power they have left, and they were trying to hold on to it for as long as possible. So Hunter goes in the meetings and phone calls. The family blames the advisors for the bad debate performance. So it's kind of like family versus trusted aides.
Yeah, it's total. I mean, they closed ranks, like you said, because they're a business as opposed to governors doing the will and the benefit of the people. They're a business. So they're going to lose their business share, and they probably already are with world leaders. Like you can already see world leaders pivoting towards, all right, we need to prep for Trump to come back because they didn't have such a great time last time. So they're already losing it. But the problem is now when it's just your family advising for their own personal interests, he's not getting any real advice. Like there's no one that's getting to him to say the truth, right? If you've totally washed off all of any impartial advisor to be like, hey, this is not a good idea. I mean, you're seeing it from the White House staffers now, like, no, this is a nightmare. The real threat of Biden and his policies and his decline is, one, it's actually a good thing for the country when both parties are strong, right? You can play off each other. People can make a choice. You can say that the Republicans have been marginalized over the last number of years because of whatever in the media and blah, blah, blah. But the Democrats have no bench at all. And the Republicans do have a pretty strong bench of candidates. And the real worry for the Democrats is that President Biden is going to crush their down ticket people, and they're going to start losing House seats and Senate seats because everyone's like, you guys are freaking nuts. So they're going to start voting with their pockets against the policies. They got real problems, I think.
I think the one thing we haven't mentioned at all in either last week or this week is the impact of Elon Musk on the 2024 election. The Democrats lost their number one weapon, and that was control of social media. They no longer have that. And I feel like Elon Musk taking over Twitter changes the 2024 election scape completely. If Elon Musk had not taken over Twitter, Trump has no chance. But with Elon Musk running Twitter, Trump dominates.
Yeah. That's his weapon.
Well, it's fair now.
I guess you could. It's up for debate, I guess, right? So Supreme Court, obviously all the Supreme Court rulings came out. The big one was the 6-3 against Jack Smith, and the prosecution gave Donald Trump immunity for official acts. The liberals, going crazy about it, and they're saying that they're got nightmare scenarios, like the president orders his rival to be killed, or these other nightmare scenarios that they came up with. But John Roberts basically said you can't prosecute the president for doing something that they are supposed to be doing. What do you guys think about this first Supreme Court thing, this immunity for Donald Trump?
So I would say Nixon's rolling over in his grave, first of all. Like, he's got to be just pissed off. But number two, like, it's terrifying when you got people like Hillary Clinton making jokes about drone striking Julian Assange, right? Like, because they don't have the sanctity for human life. If you watch Iron Man 1, there's this thing about like, oh, a drone will never have the instincts of a pilot, all that. And it's like, no, that's actually not why. The reason why you don't want to enable drone strikes is you want the pilot, the person who's doing the pulling of the trigger, doing the killing, to be the one making that kind of decision, because you don't want to have politicians in DC making those kind of choices. And so I think that's just terrifying, because it will embolden a terrible politician that is lacking in ethics. So in the Julian Assange joke by Hillary Clinton, I think, is the perfect example of that. However, I don't think that this is as sweeping as people say, because, like, for instance, I don't think it impacts the hush money trial in New York City, because that's not an official capacity, number one. It's not going to exonerate the people who work for the president. So just because he gives an order, he's not going to be the one doing the action. So all the people who conduct that action, like the plumbers in the Nixon case, the guys who went in and broke into the Watergate complex, those guys would still be held liable and they'd still go to jail. So the people carrying out the order still have to assess the validity of that order, just like every military member does, to make sure it's a lawful order, and then carry it out if they're willing to carry it out. So just because it exonerates the president, it doesn't exonerate the people who are actually going to get the job done.
There's two things. One, it always astounds me how the Democrats like to wage warfare on the other side, as if the Republicans would not come to power. And then they're like, oh, you can't do the same to us. That's not fair. Like, we've been beating up Trump for 4 years, crushing him. But now if he gets back in because of this, he's going to assassinate all of us, which is not true, obviously. And two, the ruling does not preclude, like, it says official duties. Okay, well, you can't, if the president signs a death warrant against his political rival, that's not an official duty. I mean, there's still a rule of law that encompasses what a president can and cannot do.
I mean,
and if you prove him outside of that, then they can impeach him.
If you're signing a death warrant, you obviously have already concocted some,
right.
Putin thing, like, oh, he's corrupt and he stole all the money and whatever. We have to kill him, or whatever.
What they think they basically said is you cannot politically prosecute your political opponent for your own benefit, is what I read into the ruling.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea of like court packing and all that, I mean, we really got to get some common sense back into the three branches of government and their specific separation of powers and duty. Because if one side is just like, look, we're going to do whatever it takes to maximize our power potential, eventually that's going to backfire on them. I mean, you're seeing that right now with the Democrats. Like all of their oversteps of power are backfiring on them.
It's inherently a zero-sum game, so it's like win or lose. It's like political death.
Right.
And so I see it as essentially the conservatives banding together and responding to the Democrat and deep state, whatever, and all the state prosecutors and the prosecutors up in New York, all these like little like nitpicking, like they just combing through his whole background, which if he never run for president, nobody would have ever cared about Stormy Daniels. Nobody would have ever cared about this stuff. There's the stuff from before he was president. And then you start getting into this stuff that happened while he was president or after, like the documents and the January 6th stuff. And so there's kind of like these two classes of things. They're basically saying like, just because this person's your political adversary, like you can't just go back, comb through everything they did, start putting people on trial for this stuff that the president authorized when they were in power.
Especially at some lame state DA is like, I'm just going to get all my buddies, I'm going to totally skew the laws, and we're just going to figure out a way. We're going to like stack a jury. And because I ran on this was my one political thing that got me elected, is that I'm going to put this guy behind in bars, right? We're just going to stack this thing. It's going to be a total fraud, right? But hey, I did it. And then everyone saw through it. It was like, all right, you know what? This is total bullshit. How about we just give Trump $200 million right now to get him out? I mean, he's the one that's actually benefited from this.
I just was agreeing with Doug there because he's talking about, like earlier he mentioned how the Democrat tactics are backfiring him, and I think that's one of them, a good example of what they've tried to do to beat Trump, and it's working against them because he definitely looks like a persecuted political opponent right now. So I just agree with that.
Well, think about the basis of the second Donald Trump impeachment, right, which is this phone call that he had with Zelensky before the Russian invasion where he was like, hey, I'll give you this aid, or I'm twisting your arm. I want the dirt on Biden, right? Like Biden's son was over there. I know they were fucking around, fucking cough it up and you can have your aid back or whatever like that. Whether you agree with him or not, it's like he got impeached over this phone call. And it's like, I mean, I get it. I mean, it is tough politics and everything. And it is kind of like exploiting like the situation of these Ukrainians. But, we know that Hunter Biden was over there being corrupt and Joe was probably involved. I mean, isn't he entitled to like do what he has to do to get the information? Like what the fuck was going on over the Bidens over there?
Well, I mean, he could actually argue it was a national security thing. Like, why is this guy's son over there doing dirty deals with Ukraine and they're benefiting from it politically? Like what is he turning over in lieu of that? I mean, that's just politics. Like that level of politics, I can even handle.
But it's harassment. That impeachment was a harassment, basically.
Of course it was. Because they had control of both houses.
I mean, I think it was also still payback for Clinton. Clinton got impeached. They're like, we're gonna impeach your guy now.
Yeah, and see, this is where we gotta we need people with common sense back in. Because if we just keep tit for tatting down the road, we're never gonna progress.
It's not a bad thing if we stop making new laws that are just terrible. I want to say, I think Justice Sotomayor, going back to the original discussion, she had the original dissenting statement. And I, as someone who usually disagrees with Justice Sotomayor because she's a lefty liberal, I respected her stance for keeping the rule of law. But going back to official capacity, so let's just use a hypothetical. Let's say Trump goes to meet with Vlad Putin and then just shoots him. Because that then... that's really the only thing that it's really exonerating him for, as far as I can see. Otherwise, he's always going to have somebody else who's going to be doing things. So it really has almost no impact.
Well, they're not going to prosecute the Delta guy or whatever that does this stuff because he's just following orders, right?
I think the order was actually to curtail the lower courts. It was really the Supreme Court saying, "Hey, you guys need to get your shit together. Like, don't go rogue on us DAs and smaller court judges and things. Like, we're not going to put up with it."
I guess, yeah, because like at some point, like some city judge is going to start prosecuting every single presidential candidate or every single congressperson at some point. So yeah, it's good.
Okay, so homelessness. There was a ruling where the city in Oregon or town in Oregon can criminalize camping and sleeping on the street and everything, which is obviously what needs to be done to like get these people off the streets. And so this opens it up where cities all over the place can, have these anti-tent laws and stuff like that. And, Sotomayor, who obviously doesn't agree, says sleep is a biological necessity, not a crime. But we've all either been, I live in a city, people have been to these cities, they set up these camps, they're doing drugs in there, selling drugs on the street. And most of the people in there don't even look homeless. They've had showers, they have clean clothes on. They're just selling drugs and hiding amongst the actual homeless. That, you know what I mean? And they're creating this street culture, which is just gross. I'm against that street culture. And I think, these people should be working to get back into society. And, this whole, like, having the right to sleep outside was a big mistake, obviously. So what do you guys think about this? And this affects veterans, right? Because there's like some homeless veterans out there, and they're affected by this as well. So what do you think about homeless veterans and this new law or decision?
I mean, I would almost go the opposite way and take away the immunity of city governance and be like, hey, what are you doing to fix the problem? I mean, if people are legitimately homeless, okay. So if you got a drug dealer that's hiding amongst the homeless, he's just a criminal, right? So go get him, prosecute him for dealing drugs, etc. If someone's just homeless and sleeping in a tent, what are you going to do? Pack the jails full of him? We're already releasing prisoners. There are actual murderers all over the place because we're overtaxed. I would say that the citizenry of that town should have the right to, class action against their city governance and be like, you guys are wasting our tax dollars. You're not doing anything about it. What the fuck are you doing about it? What is your program to get these people back into society or trained? Or what are we going to do? Put them in internment camps?
That's what prisons are.
Well, they want to be on the street. They want to live on the street. They don't want a hotel room out in the suburbs. Like, they want to be on the street because that's where they can do drugs and where they can beg money from people to buy drugs. Like, if they're out in the middle of nowhere, they're dead in the water.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you. I think this is like an exact example of Roe v. Wade. What I mean by that is the government has no business legislating in this case. It is a state and local issue. Now, the local people need to get rid of their local legislators because they're clearly assholes. You don't punish someone for not having money. Like, oh, because you don't have money, we're going to fine you. That's what's going to happen there. If you read Matt Taibbi's book, Injustice, Inequality, and the Age of the Wealth Gap, which is an incredible book about exactly how it puts people in this like downward cycle of, okay, they don't have money, so we charge them $25 fine. Well, they can't make that $25 fine. So now they're stuck in the justice system forever, never being able to pay back the debts to the government. Or they, as you just mentioned, deal drugs in order to make the money so that they can pay the government back for their homelessness fine. So it's just
go into fucking rehab, man. Like, they just need to go into fucking rehab. Like, they're out in the street, like we're all living out there. There's like, I was just walking down the street in DC. There's like a father and a kid like doing some potted planting stuff. And then there's a shirtless homeless guy just racked out, like right on the pavement, right next to this little kid. Nice Sunday morning and stuff like that. I had like several interactions with clearly insane homeless people. One person had a huge tattoo right across his forehead and, made eye contact with me and was like basically like threatening me. And then on the way back home, this woman's yelling in the middle of the street. She's like, "You think you're all that? My pussy is dope." And I thought that was the best one.
Was it dope?
And from the looks of her, I would say probably not dope. I would not fuck her with your dick. So,
dude, you live in DC, man. I saw naked dudes on freaking Pennsylvania Avenue just chucking feces everywhere a decade ago. So it's been there forever. There you go.
All right.
America.
But again, I think it's a state and local issue, just like Roe v. Wade. Like, the federal government has no business making Roe v. Wade kind of thing. The federal government has no business telling states how to handle their individual citizenry. And then the states that handle their citizenry poorly will be corrected by their citizenship.
Okay. I don't even want to get into that. All right. So Illinois assault weapons ban, they decided not to hear cases. Basically, they're not making any big moves on gun control since their big decision in 2022 or 2020, I think. 22. They left in place laws preventing domestic abusers, drug users, and nonviolent felons in the lower courts. What do you think about the assault rifles and all that stuff? Do you think domestic abusers should be able to own a gun?
Again, similar to the Roe v. Wade argument I just stated, the federal government cannot make laws infringing on individuals' rights to keep and bear arms, and that includes felons, because they've been released, they've paid their debt to society. They should not have their rights restricted. Now, if the states want to do that, that's up to them. But the federal government can make no law that infringes on someone's right to keep and bear arms. And I feel like these laws infringe upon that right and are federally unconstitutional. The state governments, again, they can impose their laws if they would like to.
What are you thinking, Doug?
I don't think any Second Amendment ban overall is going to stick. They have gotten crafty on the whole magazines or accessories, etc. I tend to agree with Mason. I mean, if it's a local thing. But the problem is enforcement, right? So you can look at every town or city that has a high murder rate. Look at Chicago. They've got a no weapons policy. It doesn't work. It's the same in DC or New York or whatever. People are getting smoked all the time. It's not the everyday citizen that's like going downtown just smoking fools, right? It's people that are troubled or they're out for crime. So, and the fact of the matter is, police are reactive. They're not proactive. So they don't go hunt people down with this stuff. I don't know. It's a hard issue for me.
And they should be reactive.
I think we should go back to swords. Like everyone should be able to carry a sword because you don't get a drive-by swording or stabbing, right? You don't lose you don't lose a sword off angle.
You've never seen Monty Python, The Quest of the Holy Grail? There's a horse-by swording at the end of that.
Okay, I've seen that, but that was on purpose. It was local municipalities can enact what they like if the citizens agree with that and vote.
So I kind of want to comment on one thing. So you mentioned police are reactive, not proactive, and that's how they should be. It's kind of like that movie Minority Report. Like you don't need to be creating crimes to like arrest people before they commit the crime. And kind of like what John mentioned, it's like that homeless person in DC. Well, until they're out smoking people, they're not doing anything wrong.
Okay, I guess what I meant, Mason, was once someone is proven to be a threat to society for whatever reason, and they should be prosecuted, and if they're found guilty, they should serve their sentence. They shouldn't have if you have some radical, the police are going around following up these crimes, and then the DA is like, I'm not going to prosecute him. We're just going to let him go back on the street.
Like all the pro-Palestinian protesters in New York City that Alvin Bragg let off without prosecuting, like the guys who attacked the police officers in New York.
Or anyone who's not a citizen.
Protesters get these charges dropped like pretty routinely. I mean, they're not trying to prosecute random protesters unless they did something really heinous.
I do have a plan for that. Each protester goes to a infantry line squad. We solve the recruiting problem. They learn real fast. They don't even get basic training. You just give them to their squad. You're like, all right, you're up front, dude.
Meat attack. All right. So moving on to the escalation against Russia here. We talked about it a little bit last week. They're saying now that the war hawks in America want more funding for Ukraine. They want more money, send more money over there. Not money, but like the weapons, keep it going. Basically, it's a corporation. They're going to pick what's best for them always. Other people are saying, what's Moscow's red line and what's the cumulative impact? Like giving them one new missile or one new plane or whatever. What's the cumulative impact of all of these escalations that Biden essentially has? And will it get to tactical nukes? Because that's where they would go to try to get us to stop is with tactical nukes. And like we said last week, they have that new treaty with North Korea. They're building up their alliances. So what do you think, Doug?
I don't know. I agree with supporting Ukraine to an extent. They've got to prove that their stuff is winnable. I don't know. I honestly think Trump's a better guy to solve the issue. Biden's just chucking money at it or weapons at it. I mean, to be honest, we sort of depleted all of our weapons after freaking 30 years of war in Afghanistan and Iraq. So maybe he's doing it to build up our own weapons manufacturing industry. Will Russia go to tactical nukes? I don't think so. That would trigger so much. I mean, we would have to respond at that point. Like us in Europe would have to respond.
We can't invade Russia. That's not what we want to do.
No, we're not going to invade Russia, but you can erase somewhere.
Okay,
I
Mason.
mean, to be honest, if I was a new president, the first thing I would do is put the entire DoD to friggin' DEFCON 1, the highest strategic level, to include all of our strategic weaponry. One, I don't think it's really been tested out in a long time to see how responsive everybody is. The Cold War has been over for a long time, so it's not like the guys in the silo. I mean, I'm assuming I've had friends that have done the checks, spot checks, so I have a worry. And you can call it a readiness exercise or whatever. And yes, the point would be to make the world shit their pants. Like, if they think that the U.S. is in decline, you get to remind them, who daddy is. Secondly, I'd probably initiate selective service because I don't think our citizenry has any skin in the game anymore. Be like, hey, whoever you are, your number's going to come up. So better start paying attention. We've become a war game where everyone watches it on TV and it's like, dude, that's just like Call of Duty. It's like, yeah, not for me.
So you'd run a fire drill on the entire defense establishment for no specific reason. Then you would start drafting men and women for a war that's not happening. Sure. Don't you see the generals as a problem? Like, I see the fucking generals as a problem here.
Of course they are, because they become politicized.
So why focus on this other shit? Like, with these generals, the reason why this shit in Ukraine isn't working is one of the same reasons it didn't work in Afghanistan. These military officers, all they can fucking think about is this Western model of a military. Like, they basically are trying to turn the Afghans into a Western U.S. military with contractors and helicopter mechanics, all that shit. Not going to fucking work because they can't read and they can't add without taking their shoes off and shit.
I agree with you that the idea of the Marshall Plan will not work in a country that has no concept of democratic law or freedom of rights. With one village just fights the same village for centuries.
Yeah, the same fucking idiot generals then went into Ukraine after they dumped out of Afghanistan and tried to turn the Ukrainian military into this European NATO military, which it is not. And they tried to fight like it was NATO, which it wasn't. And they're running out of men. If it was NATO fighting Russia, we could do counteroffensives because we'd have a lot more men. The Ukrainians basically burned through all their men because of this stupid fucking strategy. And now we're just in this stalemate thing. So I see the general, like, decapitate this whole generals, all of these people. Even the civilian bureaucrats, too.
I'm not arguing with you there.
Again, I always say that I think our failure in Afghanistan was the fact that we did not use conventional forces like we try to go special operator because I guess for Hollywood love. I think if we'd gone conventional forces, like done a Sherman March to the Sea style, Petraeus March to Osama bin Laden, I feel like they would have taken things a lot differently. The world would be very different if we had a different strategy.
We did use conventional forces. It was just soft that did 98% of the fucking killing. To finish my one complete off-topic idea, yes, we had to go to Afghanistan because that's where the terrorists were training. That's where they're basing everything out of. Okay, but you have a whole American army in Afghanistan, right? And then we came up with a reason, basically, to invade Iraq and take over, which we did. And now you have an American army in Iraq, and you got the Kurds to the north, you got the Navy to the south. And our real goal, strategically, was Iran. We fucking chickened out. We didn't deal with them, and now we're having to deal with them again because we gave them a shitload of money back. That was our big mistake.
Okay. So, I think one thing I didn't fully finish the thought, I kind of pulled a Joe Biden and lost my train of thought there. Ukraine is a conventional fight. So that's why the tactics should be different, and the generals that maybe failed in Afghanistan can succeed in Ukraine is because it's a conventional fight in Ukraine where it wasn't a conventional fight. As they demonstrated, they let some weapons be used in the Ukraine theater, and the Russians got schwacked last month. So imagine if they had allowed the entire U.S. military to conduct conventional military operations like we're trained and prepared to do. Russia would get crushed in a month.
Yeah, but they have nukes.
We'll shoot them down.
All of them.
The Cuban Missile Crisis part worries me. We haven't mentioned that, but like all the drills outside of Cuba, that's actually kind of spooky to me.
I mean, they've got nuclear submarines just like we. All they have to do is surface the submarines, and they can take out New York, D.C., anywhere they want.
That's why I'd run the fire drill. It'd get their attention. I mean, it doesn't matter if the dictator is like completely schwacked out of his mind and doesn't care. I mean, it's easy for Xi to piss his people away because he doesn't care. He doesn't think he's under threat, right? But even if you got Kim Jong, whatever the fuck his name is, who's completely nuts and his whole family's nuts, I guarantee there are people on that staff that are like, you know what? I really don't want my family to die. So let's figure something out with this nut job, especially if we spin up everything. Be like, yeah, all right. Let's test fire this. Let's test fire this Minuteman.
Yeah.
See what happens.
So we're talking about China a little bit. Let's move on to the last topic, which is concern about Chinese AI. Chinese have been showing off their robot dogs. I assume they have AI on them with a rifle on the back, basically. say it's about 110 pounds, and
Big deal.
Representative, I mean, stuff's been around for a while, but they're showing it off. Representative Vern Buchanan, Republican of Florida, said that AI is an economic and military frontier, which is great. He says that we have to make sure our military is one step ahead. Well, they are not. So I agree with him, but these people need to understand that it's not going well, and the Chinese are either getting ahead of us or catching up to us. But we're stuck in the mud with all these bureaucrats, basically. He says prioritizing innovation is vital, or that's Mike Rogers says prioritizing innovation is vital, but we're not. There's no innovation happening inside the Pentagon or the DoD because there's no entrepreneurs. Bureaucrats don't innovate. Program managers don't innovate. What do you guys think about the Chinese AI dogs?
We have a robot dog with weapons on it as well. We do.
But I mean,
it's a cool weapon.
It's not so much the dog. Okay, so if we have a robot dog and they have a robot dog, which one's going to win? The one with the better AI. So then we get back to the AI. Like, where are we on AI? Where's China on AI?
I mean, I would agree with you that it's somewhat who has the better AI, but I also think it's what you're saying is who has the better early detection and early decision-making capability. And that's not necessarily from the dog. That's from the entire command C2, JAD C2, whatever the fuck buzzword it is now, total combined sensor infrastructure.
You're going to boil the military conflict down. It's like dog versus dog. The only variable here is which AI is better. And that one's going to win every single time. It's just going to shoot faster. That's it.
Probably because they have less respect for human life. So they'll probably just be like, well, we accidentally had human casualties that were unexpected. Oh, no. Whereas we would be against that. So we would program human respect first. They would program human death first.
Yeah, but there's also, it's not just on the ethics of it, it's also the effectiveness. What's more accurate, what makes decisions faster, makes better decisions when you have 500 of them and they're all talking, then there's all kinds of tactics and strategy of like all these dogs like going on their killing spree or whatever.
I don't know that I buy that China is developing their own hyper-effective AI independent. I think their modus operandi has always been espionage, stealing it from us, just like the Soviets did, right? There's a reason that Soviet fighters look a lot like our fighters 5 years after the fact, because they stole the plans. The thing that the Chinese really excel at is espionage. I guess I'm less concerned about their AI at a tactical level than I am their interest in space.
With their space, even 2 years ago, back when Mark Milley said it, they launched their hypersonic missile that went around the world twice and shocked everybody and was more advanced than what we have. There's no reason that they couldn't leapfrog us in AI, and they've made it very clear that they intend to leapfrog us in AI. They want to be the AI leader by 2030. I mean, the only thing holding them back, they have more engineers than us. They work harder than us. They want it more than us. Their government is pushing the gas where our government is all hemming and hawing, and they're getting all these like legal, ethical consultants on AI to gum up the works. I mean, there's just no reason to assume that they couldn't beat us. The only thing holding them back is the chips. Like Biden cut off their chips. So another article that we were looking at here is that China is rationing their chips. And so you can only, if you have an AI company in China, you can't get as much chip as you want. Like you have to share it, or it's more expensive, or you just don't get it 24 hours a day or whatever it is that you want. That's a big holdback, a big problem for them.
I want to step back to something Doug mentioned about his worry about China, and I agree with him 90%. I would say like he was talking about space is kind of where China's future frontier is, and I agree with that. But I think their first thing is Taiwan, with an optional side quest of destroying Japan as vengeance for World War II. I'm not really sure how they're going to deal with that one.
I don't think they want to pick a fight with Japan, man.
I think they're going to want Taiwan back.
Yeah, of course.
And then they're going to make, again, maybe Japan will fall or not, but then it's space. And if you study, like, John, I think in one of our first episodes, you talked about Mao's Book of Warfare, where it's create a stalemate until you're in an advantageous position and then take the fight to the enemy. That's what they're doing with space right now. So everybody's like, okay, we're not going to colonize the moon, except for Elon Musk. But as soon as China has the capability to put people on the moon, they're going to colonize the shit out of it. And I think that is the future of like where we need to be fighting them, because China, I don't think, is going to be invading anyone again other than Japan or Taiwan in the near future.
I agree. I think just Taiwan. But yeah, the race, our entire future is like USA and China, who is going to get humans off the planet. Like, who gets to export their legal system and their cultural values and their language and our food? Is the outer space going to be Chinese, or is it going to be this American thing?
I agree.
We're not a shoo-in. I think we're probably ahead of them still, and we have a lot of advantages, and they have a lot of problems, but we got a ton of problems too, and we're vulnerable to them manipulating us and buying off our politicians, using lawyers, money laundering, using all their dark arts and stuff against us.
Buying land.
But you know,
Yeah.
we got Jeff Bezos as well. Nobody remembers Jeff Bezos in the space war because Elon Musk is the publicity guy. But Jeff's out there as a very good number 2 option, and he's probably better than anything China's got.
What are you talking?
Jeff Bezos, Blue, whatever the fuck it's called, Space Blue. He's pretty awesome in the world of space. And so again, China's trying to come and from behind and beat us, but I think it's as allies, one, because space I think is a future, and it's hopefully going to be a non-conflict in space.
What if we didn't have Elon Musk? Almost all of the space launches in the entire world right now are SpaceX. If Elon Musk didn't exist, or if he went to China instead of America from South Africa, we'd be totally fucked. You know, and he's also a single point of failure. What if he gets ass cancer next year and then he's gone? You know what I mean? Plus, the government has done everything they possibly could to stop Elon Musk at every turn. You know, they put all the risk on him. They barely did anything to help him, and they never believed in him. And they saw him as competition for their bloated, outdated bullshit waterfall programs. And he crushed them. And then he embarrassed them. And now we need him. Ukraine wouldn't even have internet if it wasn't for Starlink. All the military shit didn't work in Ukraine. They only had Starlink, and that was all Elon Musk.
Good for him.
That worries me. Well, yeah, but I mean, like, how incompetent and shitty is our government that if this one guy hadn't decided to be a workaholic in California, we'd be behind the 8 ball to China.
I thought they found a way to beat Starlink since then.
They'll mess with it, but then the engineers just recode it or whatever they do, and they've kept it up like pretty much the whole. Zelensky and Starlink are probably the 2 main reasons that Ukraine still exists.
And while Zelensky's wife is buying a $5 million car.
That's fake news, dude. I even posted in the fucking group.
That was fake news?
Yeah, bro. And you're sitting there complaining about the mainstream fake news.
Hey, I'm just not a fan of Zelensky. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you bought this like random Instagram post that was put out by these Russian fucks, wasting my time looking at it.
It's very believable.
Well, yeah, I guess it's good. I didn't get it right away, but I saw that it was fake later. Anyway,
cool. Thanks for the correction.
All right, so what do we think about OpenAI, like cutting off China, and then now in China, all the AI companies are trying to fill the void of OpenAI discontinuing services in China for ChatGPT, basically. They're calling it the Battle of 100 Models, which is like an Asian proverb type thing. What
has OpenAI really done for the average American other than give away our privacy? So like, I don't really see it as like some sort of a weapon or an enabler that the Chinese are losing out on for not having. It's like, ooh, so there's a different deep state target stealing all of your data and giving it to Chinese government control. Oh no. OpenAI, as far as I know, does nothing tangibly good or useful. So like, what's the loss? It's like they have some of the best AI models in the world. But what does it do? So, okay, good. It's winning. I think there was an article that talked about like the awards, and it's not even in the top 10, right? Like Alibaba is number 1. It's got like 3 of the top 10. I thought I saw that somewhere. And again, AI is completely overrated and bullshit. Usually it's just a sales pitch. It's usually just a term for a complex algorithm.
Personally, I think we should just cut off all tech to China, although, I mean, I understand why the businesses went there because labor was cheap and they can twist the arm of the poor Chinese people that work for fucking, a bowl of rice a day. But that's where we need to focus. And I think we should cut off all tech from China. Like, why should we help our adversary get us the advantage? Hold on. As far as the OpenAI thing goes, I think the one thing it does do, as you alluded to, John, is it's not just necessarily the companies, SpaceX or whoever, that has some masterful CEO. We still have a culture in America where the dude sitting in his garage that's doing all this stuff, who's built his own computer and is fucking around with AI, can come upon some fantastic solutions and then go either sell that to the market or integrate it somehow. And that's a benefit that America has where I don't think the Chinese do. Like, Chinese don't empower their individual citizens to go about development based on their own interests or whatever. They have a very strict outline on things. So if it's not government run and if it's not part of the military, then it's not getting made.
I mean, Kai-Fu Lee says that thinks that the Chinese entrepreneurs are better than the Americans. There's people that think that their Silicon Valley is doing better than ours.
As you may recall, if you go back to anything anyone read 10 years ago, oh, China entrepreneurship, I don't know, too much risk averse. This is a 1,000-year-old cultural issue. But this plan really told the people, hey, being an entrepreneur is okay. Working in a startup is okay. Failing is okay. Just try again. That, I think, was a massive shift that I wouldn't have thought would be possible.
Quickly. And it happened
5
so
years.
quickly. Yeah.
I'll tell you, when I started Sinovation Ventures, I had to wine and dine fiancés, parents, grandparents, basically convincing them to let their children or fiancé to come work for a startup, and explain to them I will personally mentor them and help them. If they don't succeed, then there will be another chance, etc. But I don't have to do that anymore. I think the traditional risk averseness has been unbrainwashed in 5 years.
Yeah, but they still, I guarantee they still work for the Chinese government.
Yeah, every company is owned part by the government. Yeah,
That's right. So they still have an overseer, right? Not that we don't in a lot of ways, but generally our overseers only oversee or cut bullshit deals with Northrop Grumman and large projects like that cost billions of dollars, or Microsoft. We pay them on the back end for some bullshit goggles. Just because they run all our software.
Just fucking stupid. But hang on, Doug, I've been wanting to interject for a second. I want to implement 99% of what you said. So you said we should cut off China and all these places from 99% with you. Instead of cutting them off, I mean, all the taxes, why don't we have a massive data tax on foreign threats? If data exits the United States space and is going to what is a known threat, or just maybe anything external, and we need to start having data tariffs. Instead of taxing Americans, let's start doing some data tariffs and update our monetary policy and fiscal policy, update our fiscal policy to the modern world. And nobody's doing that. So it'd be an easy way to raise revenue from the foreign actors that are manipulating Americans, raise that revenue while protecting Americans the right way without actually using totalitarian control. That's why it's a 99% solution.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I think data and tech needs to fall under the same export laws that we use weaponry to.
Yes.
If I want to sell, believe me, I did this. If you want to sell a radio to an ally like the UK, it's got to go through a shitload of paperwork. It's got to be approved. It's not an easy deal. And we're talking about a Five Eye ally. You want to sell data to the Chinese? Okay, let's see what that code is. And maybe we don't want them to have the whole code or whatever it is.
Yeah, or 23andMe, Ancestry.com or whatever, they can take 100 million people's genetic data and just sell it to some Chinese company. I mean,
that is right. So I think I said this on here before. That is the actual terror to me, because if you do not think that there's a Chinese bio research weapons facility researching how to kill everyone who is not Han Chinese, finding a genome solution for that, you are crazy.
That's interesting. I was actually thinking about having that be a topic, these bionomic weapons next week.
That'd be a good topic considering COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys got any final words? Think we're about done?
I don't think so. I got on my Iran soapbox, so.
All right, Mason.
I guess one question I have is I don't know anything about the Iranian election that was yesterday, but hopefully the new guys don't hate America. That's my only wish. Hey, maybe
it was just
they won't.
It was just the president. The president's a figurehead for the Ayatollahs, man.
He died in that helicopter crash that definitely wasn't orchestrated by Israel, probably.
Yeah. He got smoked.
Definitely no Mossad action there.
Well, I mean, he did launch 1,000 missiles at Israel, so they killed him.
I was doing some research on this other Israeli kill mission and inside Iran, and there was this nuclear scientist, and he wasn't following his security protocols. He made his security guys ride behind him, and he wasn't riding in an armored car, and he was driving in front and with his wife next to him. And the Israelis brought in a automated machine gun, piece by piece. They smuggled it into the country and set it up, and were waiting for him for weeks. He started driving down this road, and this robot gun just opened up on him and just waxed him inside Iran.
Those crafty Israelis.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, well, thank you both for being here. It was a really great show, and we're just going to keep it going, trying to get for next week. So,
sounds good, John.
All right,
thanks.
Thanks for
Jason,
watching.
good to meet you, man.
Nice meeting you, Fonz.
Bye.